Good morning, Clearbranch kids. I hope you guys are having a great month so far as we hear about some cliffhangers in the Bible and that we also learn what we need to deal with cliffhangers in our own lives. And what that is grit, which means refusing to give up even when life gets hard. And as we saw in the first half of Joseph's story last week, Joseph had a lot of grit, a lot of bad things, a lot of really crazy things had already happened so far in his life. But he trusted God and he didn't give up. So where we left Joseph last week, he was unfairly imprisoned in a country not his own in Egypt. And he has helped out a couple of other prisoners one who has gotten out of prison and has been restored to his former job, but he forgot the promise that he had made to Joseph to help him be rescued as well. So some time goes on and Joseph, like he does, works very hard, and word starts to get around that Joseph, with God's help, is able to interpret dreams. Well, Pharaoh has a dream that to him is very, very concerning. And so he's asking around who can help him out. And he finds out that there's this guy in prison right now that can, with God's help, interpret dreams. And so he calls Joseph to him. And when he tells Joseph about the dreams, Joseph is able to tell him that what this means is there's going to be 7 years where Egypt is going to be very prosperous. There's going to be enough to eat for everyone, more than is needed. But then those 7 years of plenty will be followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh is so moved that he pulls Joseph from prison and he puts him in charge of making sure that they grow as much as they can during these prosperous years and then save as much as they can so that their country won't be so hurt during this time. Well, things play out exactly like the dream had shown. There are 7 very prosperous years and then famine hits. But because they've saved food, people in Egypt are able to get enough to eat. And Pharaoh makes sure that Joseph is in charge of selling people food so that he can sort of regulate how much everyone gets to make sure that no one gets too much and no one doesn't get enough. Unfortunately, this famine spreads further across the land, all the way to Canaan, the land where Joseph and his family had grown up. And if you remember, where his family still lived. Well, when the famine came, those people heard that in Egypt you could go and buy grain. And so Jacob sent his 10 oldest sons on to Egypt to buy food. Of course, they don't know where Joseph is. Jacob thinks that Joseph's dead. And the youngest son, Benjamin, they decided should stay behind because he was too young. So when the brothers came to Joseph to buy their food, Joseph recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And so he decides to see if he can find out if they know. And he accuses them of being spies. And they assure him that he's not. But he decides to test them and sends them all the way back home and tells them that they can have the grain they came to buy, but they need to return and bring the youngest son with him. And meanwhile, he's going to keep one of the brothers, Simeon, with him. So the brothers return home and they tell their father what happened. But at first, he doesn't let them go back with Benjamin. But the time comes that they run out of grain already, and so they need to go back and buy more. So this time, Jacob decides that Benjamin can go back with them. When they return, when Joseph sees them coming, he asks for someone to take them directly to his home. And he has a huge feast prepared. At this point, Joseph decides that it's time to reconcile with his brothers. So he goes in, and they're all gathered around, kind of confused, I'm sure, to see what's going to happen next. And Joseph tells them, I know who you are, and you don't recognize me, but I'm your brother. And I don't want you to feel bad. I don't want you to be upset, because God sent me on ahead to make sure that these things would happen. And because of all the way that things played out, because you sold me into slavery, because I'm in Egypt, I've been able to save the lives of many people, and in turn, save you, my brothers. And the whole family was able to be reconciled. So guys, this is a very dramatic story. Hopefully we won't have such drama play out in our lives, but what we need to take from this is our bottom line for the week. And that's what Joseph tried to tell his brothers. We need to hold on because there's a bigger story.